Yes. Hi,
Hi.
Craig. Welcome. Good morning and namaste from India. We are in the second Metabolic Health Conference held from India. The first one was in October 2023. And we are glad you're here, Craig. For our viewers, let me introduce Craig. Craig Emerich is an engineer and has spent the last 15 years researching nutrition and working with thousands of clients alongside his wife, Maria Emerich. He's an international best-selling author of Keto, the Complete Guide, and the Carnivore Cookbook. He uses his knowledge to help clients heal and lose weight, leveraging their biology to make it easy. Craig has helped tens of thousands of people regain their health back and vitality with a strong focus on the deep science of human nutrition. So I welcome Craig, and with me is Anup Singh, the founder of DLife.in, which is India's oldest and the biggest and the only award-winning low-carb platform, which now also has a diploma course in low-carb nutrition and metabolic health, which I guess is the biggest in the world with 60 CPD credit hours. So welcome, Craig. Welcome, Anup, and let's begin this session.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, Craig, begin with a very light-hearted question. Why
Yeah.
are engineers increasingly getting into the
Mhm.
nutrition and health space and changing it altogether? I have two of you on the screen, in front of me right now. So, what do you think is the compelling need for guys like you to get into the metabolic space, health space increasingly?
Yeah, and there's many in the US as well, in addition to myself, that have gotten into this space and been real influencers in this community. And I
Yes.
think it comes back to how we solve problems and how we look at problems. Engineers look at problems and systems to root out root causes of problems. And I think the human body can be treated a lot the same way. And I think in healthcare today, we don't do that enough. We don't
Mm,
root out root causes as much, especially in America. We put band-aids on symptoms so much. We give them a prescription that will help with the symptoms, but doesn't address the root cause. Why is this happening? Why is the body having these problems? Why are you having these symptoms? And when you come back and you peel back and look at the root cause and fix that, most of the time the body will do what it's supposed to do. It will give you the right outputs if you give it the right inputs. And the right inputs
mm,
are proper diet, you know, uh, exercise, not smoking. It's like a negative input, all these inputs to the body. If you get them wrong, the body gives you bad outputs, gives you disease, gives you diabetes, gives you cancer, and these other, bad outputs.
mm. Anup?
Yeah, before I, come to the question, I think I would like to add to Emerich's point of view. Engineers don't have a pamphlet given as guidelines to
Yeah.
work with. They are trained to use their brains, and they are very open-minded because once they get into a new field, they are more inquisitive to learn, experiment, and then see the output, how it helps. Now, coming back to question, same way, why do doctors never ask for diet? What a patient is eating? And what's wrong with the current, I would say, global American diet now? Because it's no longer a standard American diet. And who do you think is benefiting from such a crappy diet, which has, pushed entire world into a,
Mm.
I would say, a hole of sickness?
Yeah, I'm sorry, are you asking me?
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
Yes.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was the
No,
question.
it's a very good question. And who benefits from this status quo, if you will, of the healthcare
Mm,
system? Obviously, pharmaceutical companies do, because you're just pushing more and more band-aids, more and more pills to these problems, and you're not addressing the root causes. And on the root cause side, Kraft, Kellogg's, these big companies, they want to keep pushing their products that are hyper palatable. They drive more eating, more hunger. Literally, they have been engineered and designed to make
Yes.
you eat more of them, and that's more profits for them. And so on that side of the things, they don't want it to change either.
mm. So, so to the first part of the question, why are doctors then not asking their patients to begin with what are they eating?
I want to add in to that point. And when you said that, it totally triggered a memory of mine with my wife. My wife, Maria, she started down this path over 20 years ago now, 26
Yes.
years ago. She started
Yes.
eating keto, low carb. And it started when she was going to the doctor for her own health issues. She had PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. She had IBS, acid reflux. She had extra weight that she couldn't get rid of. And she was following all the guidelines, the healthy whole grains and the, low fat and all this, and nothing was helping, even running marathons. And she went to the doctor with all these issues, and she was basically told, these are the cards you're dealt. And here's like 3 prescriptions to deal with these issues.
Yeah.
The same week, our dog was losing patches of its hair, and we went into the vet, and the first question the vet asked, what are you feeding it? And the doctor never asked her this, not once. And so I
What I
think that
know.
is, again, back to the core of this problem, is they're not asking what the inputs are, what's maybe the root cause here. They're just slapping, band-aids on the symptoms that are resulting.
So, Craig, extending that question now, how did you come into low carb and carnivore?
Yeah, so my own journey, obviously with my wife going down this path, yeah, it's been a very long time that we've been doing this, and about 4 or 5 years into her own journey for her fixing her own body and researching and studying and figuring out how to do it and finding this method and reversing her PCOS, got rid of her acid reflux, lost the extra weight, even though she stopped running marathons because it was hard on her joints. So she stopped running marathons and just changed her diet, and all of a sudden all the extra weight just fell right off, right? She was almost twice her size that she is now. And everybody was asking, how are you doing this? And so she started coaching people and coaching clients. It took me a little longer because at the time I had no health issues. I didn't have any of the issues she had. So I didn't have the pressing need to change, 20 years ago. But about 18, 19 years ago, I finally realized that whenever I ate the food she made me, I felt way better than the other stuff that I would eat on the weekends or whatever. And I just wanted to feel better all the time. And I just transitioned over to eating keto type of lifestyle. And I've been that way ever since, 18, 19 years. It did change a little bit for me when my health did become a problem. I had Lyme disease, which is from a tick bite. That caused some inflammatory response in my body that then resulted in an autoimmune reaction. And at that time, I switched to full carnivore, and that actually improved. So I have a lot of chronic pain as a result of this condition. Going to strict carnivore from keto about 6 years ago really helps control my pain.
So I think we'll come back to your carnivore diet. Anup, would you want to take the next question?
Yeah. So why do you think, despite all the evidences in favor of low carb, keto, carnivore for various ailments, why do you think the system, I call system, which includes, everyone taking, looking into healthcare, are they against this science of, I would call it science of low carb, keto, and carnivore diet?
Yeah, it really depends a bit on, I know lots of doctors in this space that are doing great things. Dr. Ted Neiman is a friend of ours out in Seattle, and, lots of doctors that are promoting a lower carb lifestyle because they see the results. A lot of times it's either themselves or one of their patients that decides to do it. They see the incredible results, not just in weight loss, but the health changes. And so they're forced to look at it as a doctor, like, wow, this worked for this patient. Maybe it's an option for another patient. And it kind of grows. It's a slow grassroots kind of effort in that way that, doctor by doctor, they're seeing these changes, and you can't deny the results, right? And I actually started collecting our own testimonies. I don't know, 12 years or so ago. I was like, we had all these clients that would send us these amazing results. And so I saved them into a folder, and we've got, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 testimonies now from people that have sent to us. And I can go in there and search any condition, and you'll see all these testimonies for huge improvements in that condition. Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, IBS, digestive issues, Crohn's, colitis, eczema, and skin issues. I mean, you name it. We've had clients that have seen amazing results, and that's what happens with this lifestyle. Is that the weight loss is great, and everybody kind of comes to it looking for weight loss a lot of time initially, but they
Yes.
stick with it because of the health benefits, because how good they feel, how they come off their medications, how they have these symptoms reverse. The previous speaker, I just wanted to share this. We just shared this online. I don't know how well you can see it here, but this man right here,
Yeah. Yes.
Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and he came into a
I think I
clinic.
saw this. Yes, I saw this.
Yes, he came in the wheelchair
Amazing.
and really not able to speak or communicate very much. He left walking, and he signed his own forms and pulled off the
Yes.
the double sheets and took his, like, incredible change. And
That's so amazing. Yes.
just ate our recipes. We were working with the clinic, and we sent them all our books, and that's the results you can see with diet change. And I think that has to get more pervasive across healthcare somehow. It's people like us here promoting and showing these results to force them to acknowledge that this works.
Great. What stage of Parkinson's was this gentleman at, and how much time did it take for you guys to work on him and get to this point?
It was 7 months. So I'm just looking at the testimony here. It was 7 months. He was nonverbal, could barely stand up. He was in the wheelchair, and in 7 months he walked out and signed his own forms. I mean,
that's
incredible. Let's put it in this context. Back to the healthcare. If I can make a pill for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's that could do these results, I would be a billionaire. Like, it would be, right? But this is actually kind of free, right? Just eat different food.
Yes.
I mean, it's
amazing. We've been talking about all these conditions yesterday as well, and today, and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. Emmy was here, Emmy Burger, and we were discussing this. So I was very keen when I saw this post from you. I mean, I was literally shaken, because these kinds of results are very rare. I mean, there are some improvements, but to have somebody get up from the wheelchair and really sign something and walk out of the clinic is really incredible. Hats off to you, Craig.
Thank you. And Hal, who runs this facility, just a few months ago, we had on our YouTube channel too. We interviewed her, a woman that came in with dementia, and we have the tests. She came in, and on the standard dementia test form, 0 to 9 was dementia, and she was like an 8. She came in.
Okay.
Just
That's
like
an advanced
draw a
stage.
clock and these different, cognitive tests. Within a month or so, she was up to about 14, which is just mild. And then after I think it was 3 or 4 months, she was in the completely normal range, like scored like a 23 on that test. And she went home.
Incredible.
I mean, it's
incredible. Great results that you're achieving. Yes, absolutely incredible. Great. My next question to you is, not many people know, of course, those who are on Twitter may be knowing Craig's own personal journey. But for those who don't know, Craig suffered from Lyme disease and CISR, and he also has ankylosing arthritis, which is an autoimmune condition. Craig, what were your reasons to give up on the vegetables completely? Because I saw your videos where you're talking about that. You used to have them, and you gave them up completely and became a carnivore with reference to your autoimmune disease. Now, when I'm dealing with my own clients, and largely who are autoimmune cases, I need to make a point, especially in a country like India, which is 40% vegetarian. And even people who eat meat are occasional meat eaters. They're like accidental meat eaters, if you can call them.
Yeah.
So what is the significance of leaving vegetables on an autoimmune condition? What was the journey and the personal learning that you got from when you were eating them to when you left them?
Yeah, I make a pretty good case in this book over here. And there's a presentation I did, and it's on YouTube. It's called A Case for Carnivore. And I really break this down in detail. But my view on it is, well, first let's start out with plants. Plants have something called anti-nutrients. All plants have anti-nutrients. These are compounds that they're, anti-nutrients. So there's something the body doesn't want or need, or it can't use it. And so what does the body have to do with those things? It's got to detox them and get them out of the body. Things like oxalates, glucosinolates, lectins. These are compounds in plants that the body has to get rid of. If you've got a healthy immune function and you don't have any autoimmune disorders or those kind of conditions, the body does a pretty good job at detoxing them and getting rid of them. If you've got a condition like me, where I've got this suppressed immune function due to this chronic inflammatory response syndrome, SIRS, triggered from the Lyme disease that was undiagnosed for years, you got this depressed immune function and the body's constantly fighting the way it is, and then you add a load to the detoxing and the system and more inflammation from these anti-nutrient compounds, it's just too much for the system, and it just increases the inflammation. My joint pain goes up. I literally can, if I ate a bunch of plants that I don't normally eat, the next day my joints would be terribly sore, the inflammation would be up, and I'd have to suffer for a day or two. And so I see it immediately. And so I think that's part of the reason why somebody like me, and there's other people too, a lot of autoimmune disorders can see some additional success when they go all the way to carnivore. Some brain conditions too, like bipolar, Alzheimer's, those kind of things, as we've seen people have additional improvements when they go carnivore. And the other part of it, I think, is the other side of the coin when it comes to this is animal proteins are the most nutrient dense foods you're going to eat. And when I wrote this book, my wife and I wrote this book, I wrote half of it. I put a whole chapter in here about the vitamins and minerals in our food because it's just not well known. You give a plate to someone with kale, maybe some blueberries and a steak on it, and ask them, where are your vitamins and minerals coming from? And they'll probably say the kale or maybe the blueberries. But guess what? I put charts in here of like the 13 top vitamins and minerals, and the steak blows them out of the water. There's like one thing the kale is higher in, everything else steak is higher in. Like it's this, and there's a study that I put in this one as well, which is a awesome study that I really like because it was looking at gut microbiome, and it was a randomized controlled trial. So this is a really well done study, and it separated people into a completely vegan group, so they ate nothing but plants, and a completely carnivore group. They ate nothing but animal proteins. And they looked at the gut microbiome, and they saw this shift in the gut microbiome. Well, first of all, it shifted in 24 hours of having the new meal, the new diet. The gut microbiome shifted a lot for each one. But in both of them, they had the same gut bugs still. All the same bugs, just some of them went up, some went down, that kind of thing, based on what you're eating, which makes sense. These gut bugs like this animal protein, different compounds in it, so they go up. The ones for plants go down. But what's really interesting about the study is they also looked at the genes responsible for vitamin biosynthesis. So that means the genes that are responsible for synthesizing vitamins coming into the body. In the vegan group, they didn't change at all from the standard American diet. In the carnivore group, they went shot through the roof. They went way up. Why? Because you're eating the most nutrient-dense food, and it's all in the most bioavailable forms of these vitamins and minerals. So the body's flooded with all these vitamins and minerals. And that's what we should want, right? We should want the food with all the vitamins and minerals and nutrient dense.
So I'll just extend this, and then Anup, you can maybe take the next question. Now that we're talking about autoimmune, in the context of India, Craig, 40%, as I said, are vegetarians. Now, when we say vegetarians, it's not the vegan aspect of it, but they do have dairy and grains and lentils and legumes. Do you think an autoimmune condition can be bettered on such a diet? It's not a vegan, but a vegetarian diet, which is sometimes even eggs are added, but that's rare. But let's consider that out. Dairy, grains, legumes, vegetables. Do you think an autoimmune condition can be bettered, improved, or dealt with on such a diet, or is this not conducive to autoimmune cases?
So it kind of depends on where you're coming from. If you're coming from the standard American diet, anything whole foods based is going to be an improvement, and you're
Yes,
going to see some
yes.
benefits from it.
Mm.
I personally believe that for long-term health, you need to have enough complete proteins to maintain your muscle to, especially as we get older. So there's amino acid called leucine. Leucine is one of the amino acids that's kind of the trigger, if you will, for building muscle, trigger muscle protein synthesis. And animal proteins are all complete proteins. They have lots of leucine and you can build muscle with them. A lot of plant proteins are not complete, and it's hard to get enough leucine to trigger that muscle building. For example, broccoli. Broccoli is, I've seen these memes out there where they compare broccoli to meat and say, oh, broccoli per calorie, or whatever. I figured out how much leucine, to get enough leucine to trigger building muscle with broccoli, it was 9 entire heads of broccoli. Not a floret, the whole head.
Yes.
9
Yes.
full heads of broccoli to get one, where with the steak, it was like 3.5 ounces of.
Yeah, but that's how the messaging is. Craig, if you look at it, they'll take, spinach has calcium or something like that. But how much? And
In
whether
what
is
form?
it is even bioavailable to us.
Yeah.
So
like vitamin
it's
A.
like it actually mean.
Yeah, vitamin A in a lot of plants is not in the form the body wants. And where in animal proteins it is. Plus all the anti-nutrients that are in the plants. So one of the things about oxalates that cause so many people problems, oxalates are like these tiny crystals in your food in certain plants. And they can irritate the gut and possibly cause leaky gut and these kind of things. But what also is a problem is they like to latch on to minerals before they're detoxed. So they'll latch on to calcium. They'll latch on to magnesium or zinc before they're detoxed out of the body. Well, what can that cause? The majority of kidney stones are calcium oxalate kidney stones. They're not because of calcium, it's because of the oxalates that are grabbing onto them and building up in the kidneys. And then another example, there was a study, and I put that in this book as well, as this study where you have oysters are a great source of zinc. And what they did is they tested blood plasma. So they tested the blood after you ate the oyster to see how much zinc was getting into the bloodstream, right? Because it doesn't matter if you put lots of vitamins and new minerals into your mouth. If it doesn't actually get in the bloodstream, what's the point? And so what they did is they did it with just oysters. And you had this big increase in zinc. And you had lots of zinc getting into the bloodstream. They then paired the oysters with corn tortilla chips. And like a third of the zinc ended up in the blood. And then they, or no, I'm sorry, the second was black beans. It was black beans, it was like a third less. The third one was with corn tortilla chips, and none of the zinc ended up in the blood.
Yeah.
Because the oxalates are grabbing onto the zinc, and then it goes out of the body, and the body doesn't get it, right? And so that's a big factor here too.
Craig, just a short answer. A lot of vegan, people are claiming to reverse autoimmune on a vegan diet. Now, given the background of oxalates and the toxins that you've now mentioned, is it possible to improve an autoimmune condition on a vegan diet?
Again, if you're coming from standard American diet or something similar, yeah, you could probably see some nice improvements. I will say that typically there is a kind of vegan honeymoon when people go to a vegan diet. It can be a year, it can be a couple years, it can be 5 years, it can be 10 years if you're younger. But you're going to have vitamin deficiencies, and that's a fact. Everybody understands that. B12 and there's several vitamins and minerals that you're going to be deficient in unless you supplement them, because you don't get them enough from plants. But also, when you get older, it's also more of a concern, because remember the leucine curve we talked about for triggering building muscle? That leucine curve shifts with age. And so after you get 40, 50, 60 years old, it shifts. And so you need even more leucine just to build muscle. So it means you need to eat even more complete proteins just to maintain your muscle. And that's why a lot of elderly people will get sarcopenia and they'll lose muscle. And so it becomes even more important. So I would think if somebody's over 50, 60 and they go to a vegan diet, they might, again, from standard American diet, they might see some initial health improvements, but over time you're going to lose muscle and that's going to be detrimental down the road.
Anu?
Yeah, Craig, based on the, huge number of testimonials that you have, now, how effective is carnivore diet in relation to the broad spectrum of autoimmune disorders? And how much has it helped you? Have you recovered 100% or is there something still to, job to be done?
Yeah, so with ankylosing spondylitis, when it gets progressed like it is with me, like I have fused vertebrae in my neck. So they're calcified and fused. So that's not going to go away. You're not going to remove the fused vertebrae. But my pain is very much under control when I stick to a strict carnivore diet, where if I get too many plants in, then my pain goes up. So it makes it much more manageable for me. And as far as keto versus carnivore, when it comes to this, we've helped tons of people with autoimmune disorders and all these types of issues with just a keto diet. And it's only in certain cases where they have to take it a little further and go to carnivore, where they still aren't getting to where they want to get to. They get better, but maybe not quite where they want to be. And then they go to carnivore, then they get, maybe full remission or remission of symptoms. And so we kind of treat it as a case-by-case basis and kind of like a tool. If you want to be in keto and you would like some of the different plants for taste and texture and color and all that kind of stuff, go for it. If you're doing great, go for it. If you're not quite doing what you want and you're not seeing the results you want, try carnivore. Give it a try. Go down. And we even created a protocol, carnivore autoimmune protocol in this book that gives them a process to eliminate everything and then slowly add back in things to see where their tolerance level is.
Typically, Craig, what do you see? What are the triggers that you commonly see in an autoimmune condition? For example, you said if you're doing well with vegetables, you can maybe go ahead with that. But what is the standard template like? What do you need to eliminate as a standard thing to be done on an autoimmune condition?
Well, in our autoimmune protocol, we start out at beef and salt, and that's it for at least a couple weeks, and then you add in other animal proteins that you want to look at, and then from there, on the next level, you add in eggs, and then dairy. So those are at a higher level because both of those people can be sensitive to and have reactions to, and then from there you can add more spices or low carb vegetables and things and see what your tolerance is. But that's kind of that's the protocol that we developed. And beef is just one of the most ruminant animals.
Meats, yes.
Are just the most bioavailable and most well-tolerated thing pretty much out there.
I've seen people reacting even to chicken and, as you said, eggs. So poultry and fish both. So what's worked well with them is just red meat. But I would really want to know what are the things that you, as a standard template, eliminate permanently from their plates? Is that the grains? Is that fruits or what?
Well, it depends on the person again. If they can come back in and add some, salads and lettuce and, low carb vegetables like peppers or, whatnot, and they're fine with it. They don't have increase in symptoms or inflammation, then great, go for it. For in general, we try to keep people low carb though, because we find it just has better satiety. You just have more mental clarity, better that even energy you get when you're in that kind of keto diet, keto state, where you don't have that afternoon dip where you're like, oh God, I'm so, I'm gonna fall asleep here after this lunch, in this meeting and that kind of thing. You just don't get that. And part of the reason for that is when you get the carbohydrates up too high, when you spike the blood sugar with carbohydrates, whether it's from rice or, complex carbohydrates are just glucose molecules linked together in a long string. As soon as it hits the GI tract, it breaks those apart into glucose. So glucose and complex carbohydrates are, sugar and complex carbohydrates are really kind of the same thing. And when you get too much of that, you get a spike in blood sugar. And so when you get this big spike in blood sugar, the body, it's in panic mode because it's not used to that. It doesn't want too much blood sugar can kill you. And so it ramps up insulin to drive it down quickly, and a rapidly falling blood sugar will drive hunger, especially if it dips down too low, then you're ravenous. So what happens when you drink that, you have that big milkshake or whatever at the or ice cream, you get this huge spike in glucose, and then it falls down. Even though you ate 1,000-calorie milkshake, 2 hours later you're hungry. If you eat 1,000 calories of steak or eggs, you might not eat again half the day or more. So it's different for satiety. And I think so that's why we always kind of keep clients in that low carb realm.
I think the larger point that we both will agree on is that it begins with elimination first. Why it complicates things in the context of India is that if a vegetarian comes to you with an autoimmune condition, he's not ready to let go of his food ideology, which is largely plant-based. And so, eliminating is not possible. And this was the point that I was trying to make through you, because you've taken the journey yourself, that unless you eliminate and better and then add things back to your plate, you will not know the improvement that you are going to be having from an elimination line. So being vegetarian kind of makes things a bit complex. But coming to the next question, Craig, one of the misconceptions is that in keto, one has to go high fat. But is that the correct approach, especially with regards to people who are doing keto to reduce weight? Also, a lot of people are now doing the high fat, low protein diet. There are lots of videos on YouTube who are doing butter diet. I keep getting references as a coach. Is this correct? Or, should we do it? So by the time they get to that high point of fat, the protein intake goes really down. Is that a correct approach to nutrition to begin with?
I don't think it is for anyone other than maybe a couple of conditions like extreme Alzheimer's or maybe cancer patients. There might be some application there. But everybody else, especially if you're trying to lose weight, like trying to lose body fat, adding a ton to the diet is just going to slow, or if not hinder completely, your results. You got to bring it back to, I look at everything kind of mechanistically as an engineer, and I think if I put that fat in my mouth, where does it go? Right? It's going to go into the digestive tract, and it's either going to go right through the digestive tract out into your stool, or it's going to get into your bloodstream. Those are the only two places it can go. And if there was a study, and there's been a few of these, but it actually sampled everybody's stool, and they changed their diet from, I think it was 58 grams of fat in the diet to like 160 grams of fat in the diet. And they measured how much fat ended up in the stool. And on average, it changed from like 1.9 grams of fat in the stool to like 2.9 grams of fat in the stool. So it only went up like 1 gram with all that additional fat. So it's getting absorbed. The vast majority of the fat you eat is getting absorbed into the bloodstream. So now it's in the bloodstream. Where's it going to go? You don't want it to stay there, right? Because if it just stayed in the bloodstream, your triglycerides would be in the thousands. Nobody wants that. So it's got to be stored. Well, where's it going to be stored? It's going to be pushed into somewhere for storage. Your adipocytes, your fat cells, that's where you want it. You want it stored in there, because the alternative is in your liver, in your pancreas, around your organs, the organ fats. That's the alternative. So you want it in your fat cells. So the vast majority of fat you eat goes into your fat cells. Well, if you're trying to shrink your fat cells, you're trying to lose body fat, and you're adding more fat to them, how does that help? It just doesn't. And we have had daily people coming from that, especially in the carnivore community where it's promoted a lot, tons of fat and that are just either stalled or gaining weight. And they come to our approach, they prioritize protein, get enough for their body. And that's the thing about protein too, is it should be for your body size. If, Sean Baker, he's about 6'2" and I don't know how much pounds of muscle. He needs a lot more protein than I do to maintain all that muscle. Where a 5 foot tall woman, she needs a lot less. So your protein goal should be based on how much muscle you have, how much you need to maintain. And then carbohydrates being low, the only variable now is the dietary fat, right? That's the only thing left to change. And so you change that based on your goals. If you're trying to lose body fat, just dial it down a bit in the diet and let the body burn more off the body. And then once you get to maintenance, dial the fat back up until you get that maintenance point. It's really kind of simple.
Anu, next question.
As an extension to this question, can you please talk of your protein sparing modified fast, PSMF, and to extend to that, how is it different from intermittent fasting? And between the two, intermittent/extended and PSMF, which one is better?
Yeah, so I like to first of all, I like to break intermittent fasting and extended fasting apart, because intermittent fasting is just time restricted eating. You're eating your food in a certain window of time during the day, and then you have nothing outside of that window. And generally speaking, most of our clients fall in naturally into an intermittent fasting cycle because they're just not as hungry all the time. And so they'll eliminate one of their meals and they'll just eat maybe a breakfast and late lunch or a lunch and early dinner, and that's it. And then they're satisfied. And so we promote that. We think it's great. And it comes naturally for most people eating this way because they're just not as hungry. Extended fasting is different because you're talking about, longer than 24 hours of eating nothing. And a couple things about that. There's, again, maybe only one or two cases where we promote that. One's cancer, because cancer is a very anabolic disease. It likes to grow. It likes growth. And when you eat nothing, you're very catabolic state. You're not growing anything. And so that possibly could be helpful in those situations. But you're going to lose muscle. And, every study has shown this, that you're going to lose muscle when you eat nothing. The body still needs, even in ketogenic state, the body still needs glucose. Their red blood cells do not have mitochondria in them, so they have to burn glucose. There's no other option. Certain brain neurons need glucose. While a lot of that can be offset by ketones, you still need some. And what happens is the body can make the glucose it needs. If you, like me, I'm carnivore. I eat basically no glucose, but my body makes it from the protein I eat. And if you're not eating any protein, you're fasting, extended fasting, it's got to make it from your own protein, which is your muscle and tissue. And so that's why we don't really promote extended fasting, other than, again, that maybe cancer, something like that. Protein sparing modified fast is what we do in place of an extended fast. So instead of like doing a 2-day or 3-day fast where you eat nothing for 2 or 3 days, do a protein sparing modified fast for 2 or 3 days during that week. And what it is it basically mimics an extended fast without the muscle loss. So you're getting still your proper protein amount for your body, basically little to no carbohydrates, and then only like 20 or 30 grams of fat, just enough to absorb fat-soluble vitamins, just enough for, hormone production, that kind of stuff, but not much energy, so that your body's forced to tap your own fat stores a lot more for energy. And these can be great for breaking stalls, for speeding up weight loss. We don't recommend people do it all the time because it's very low calorie. And just like you wouldn't do an extended fast all the time, you just use it as a tool intermittently. But yeah, that's kind of where we land in all those spaces.
Craig, that's a very interesting answer. I think people should explore this more and try it. I'm surely going to try this. I've been doing it, but maybe the fat that I've been taking was a little more than what you've specified, but I'll definitely give it a try. Before we end the session, Craig, two things. One is, what would your advice be to people who have autoimmune conditions? That is one. And two, I would like you to talk about your books that you have behind you.
Yeah, so one recommendation from me would be, if you can, and again, I understand that in the vegan or vegetarian space, it can be very challenging. But we like eggs if they can. If we really push eggs to, it's the most complete protein you're going to get as a vegetarian. So lots of eggs can really help. But if you can do carnivore or keto, at least keto, where you prioritize protein, it's really great for autoimmune conditions. And I have not seen an autoimmune condition where there wasn't at least some benefit. Okay. It might not be a full reversal of symptoms or remission of that autoimmune disorder, but I have yet to see with, hundreds of thousands of people we've worked with over the years and millions of people that have bought our books, I've yet to see anyone that didn't see some improvements. So why not give it a try?
Craig, in India, vegetarian means not even having eggs. So you know where I'm coming from. And I'm talking about people who come to me with autoimmune conditions and wanting to reverse it or put it under remission. I am talking about people who are grain-based, legume-based, and vegetables-based. Eggs are out of the question. So that I think we get the larger point, but why don't you talk about the books that you have behind you? I think it'll be very relevant to people with these conditions.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we've got these books, which are kind of like, here's how you do carnivore, here's how you do keto. And then we've also got about, 12 cookbooks too, that really go into all the detail, every kind of recipe you can imagine, just a couple ingredients, change it out. My wife, Maria, is amazing at this. She's a chemist. She can figure out what ingredient to change to make it just like the traditional recipe, just healthier. And we've done cooking. One of my favorites is she makes this pudding, and it's made from eggs, but you'd never know it. Holly Berry did a joint cooking demonstration with my wife. She's been eating keto for like 16 years for her diabetes. She has all our books, and we did this joint cooking demo. And she's like, before we went live, she's like, Maria, I am not eating a pudding made from eggs. And we were like, just try it. So we did, and they made it, and they brought it out, and she thought it was like the most decadent mousse she's ever eaten. It was a chocolate pudding. So, you can do a little chemistry and switch out a couple ingredients and have some really tasty recipes.
Yeah. So all these books are available on Amazon, I guess.
Yes, correct. And all of our information you can get to from ketomaria.com. We have all of our links there.
So I think we've come to the end of the session, Craig. Maybe we'll have one podcast, T-Live podcast with you sometime later after this MHC. I would want to have Shashi on the screen. And Anup, anything you would like to add to the end?
It was very nice talking to you. It's always a pleasure interacting with an engineer because they're all thinking on the same plane.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. Is Shashi there?
Yeah, please get Shashi in.
Yeah.
Craig, hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me on.
So happy to have you. And we have been seeing the success stories of you and Maria for quite some time. And I think it's all one of the amazing success stories. And the way you guys have transitioned, from various dietaries, from low carb to keto to carnivore, to a higher protein-focused, protein spectrum diet. And I think that really provides very good option. And the kind of success stories you post are something which is amazing. What is very important is if that patient who is suffering from Parkinson, if he can walk back to his home, I think nothing can really express, the kind of happiness that the person gets and the kind of happiness content which you both get.
It's incredible. It's the most rewarding job I've ever had. It really is.
And again, as Anup says that you are one more engineer. So we know quite a lot of engineers are cracking the nutrition space only because of your engineering mind.
Well, thank you so much.
That I always say that I'm not an engineer, but I also know engineers as someone who will see this cause effect. The cause effect things always
and root causes of problems. I always go back to the root cause. What's causing this? problem.
And I heard once Ivor Cummins say that, if the nutritional way of science is applied to, let us say, aeronautical engineering, then plane will crash daily. And then you will keep telling that it is the fault of the passengers.
Yeah, there you go.
So that is how the nutrition space is like this. It is today the fault of us and not the dietary guidelines.
Yeah.
So this is how
Okay.
conflicted it is. It's wonderful to have you. Thank you very much, Craig. And
Thank
Bill.
you.
Thank
Very
you,
nice
Craig.
to-
Thank you for coming. And
Very
our
nice to see
regards
you
and love
all.
to Maria as well. Thank you, Anup.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Shashi.